I was not going to give a very long introduction because I wanted to leave the majority of the time for him to talk to us about higher education in Oklahoma. I might just say that he has been a great representative for higher education. He and I were colleagues in the same position for about 6 months. I started my presidency in 2006, and he was just ending his at Southeastern Oklahoma State University. We were under the same board and were great friends and colleagues there. And in January of 07, he moved to the chancellor's position and has just been a leader for all of higher education in this state. And we're so happy that he is in the position that he is. So with that, I think I'll turn it over and let you have the microphone. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, President Cunningham. Great to be here today in Enid, and really good turnout. Appreciate all of you coming out, and it's a very timely meeting in terms of an opportunity as we're about 3 weeks away from the start of the legislative session to talk about, from a specific standpoint, our budget request and our legislative agenda, but I think really from a broader standpoint, and that's what these legislative meetings are really all about, the value of higher education and the strength of our state system in terms of what we bring to the state's economy, and we want to talk about that as well. We will be handing out, providing some handouts if you want to follow the discussion there, but not mandatory, but may be helpful. And for those that are still continuing with lunch, please feel free to go ahead. Know you will anyway, but it's always good to know it's okay to do so. Let me make a couple of we've introduced our staffs, and it's a real treat for our state region staff to come to the meetings. We always enjoy coming to Enid, and let me take a moment to introduce our staff that's here. Beginning, President Butler almost introduced him as the academic officer at Southwestern, but let me introduce our state regents, Vice Chancellor for Academic Affairs, Dr. Blake Sonobe, join us today. It's okay. It's the first of the year. We can applaud. I think that's reasonable. Our budget and finance officer, also responsible for OneNet and telecommunications and information technology, Amanda Pagliata, over on my left, your right. Sure. Our general counsel, Bob Anthony, same table. Our legislative director, responsible for all of our federal and state legislative activities, Holly Hunt, who's in the back. Our communications director, Angela Cadell, who's also in the back, helping us here. And then finally, in my office, Janet Jackson. Janet's here with us as well at that far table. So, and let me, he's been introduced, but always great to have Burt Mackey at any gathering. A member of the state regents, served 2 terms, both appointed by both Governor Boren and Governor Nye, and someone that we still rely on a lot, and I know those in Enid rely on Burt as well. So I want to recognize his leadership and service. And as we talk about the budget request today, I do want to, the presidents that are here that have already made their remarks, I do want to stress, and I think you know this, our budget presentation, our legislative agenda, is a document that has been developed. We really start working on it in early June, as soon as Senator Anderson, as soon as the legislative session ends for the previous year. And it is a collaborative effort between the presidents and our office, and certainly our regents. Regents that are here today, I just want to thank you for your service. Really, one of the great stories in Oklahoma are our regents who devote countless hours, bring a lot of expertise to the table, and again, as I'll talk about in a minute, the business leaders in this state say that the strength of our higher education system is the number one business strength in the state, and I think that certainly begins at the top with our governance structure, our governing boards, our state regents, and our various regent boards. So let me, on behalf of the state system, thank all of the regents today for their service, and certainly our faculty and staff. Students, we're setting a record this year. I want to recognize two students that are here, C.J. Cavan and Ryan Melton. If they'd stand, let's recognize them. If they're I meet with our student advisory group twice a year. They said they wanted to be more engaged in everything we're doing, so I suggested they come to our meetings. And at this point, we've had 5, and they've made all 5. So let's and they haven't missed class yet either. So that's I think that's a real something we should recognize. And then finally, before I start, I do want to underscore, we're here today to talk about next year, but if you don't say thank you when positive things happen, you're really not doing what you should do. Last year represented the first time in 5 years that we had a positive increase in our budget in terms of our operational budgets for higher education. Additionally, as everyone knows, a $24 million appropriation to address our debt service issues going all the way back to our bond issue in 2010, but if it had not been addressed by the legislature, we would have started the year with a $24 million cut to higher education. And Senator Marlette is walking in the door. His timing is impeccable. So as he is here and Senator Anderson is here, let's take a moment. As we look to next year, let's recognize what happened last year, and that is a budget that was a positive budget for higher education, and also with the debt service represented the best year for higher education in the last 5 years. Let's thank Senator Marlette, Senator Anderson, all their colleagues in the House and Senate for standing up and making higher education funding a priority in 2013. Appreciate it. And with that, I'm going to get right to our discussion today. We do have these meetings in an effort to bring our story forward. I think it would be fair to say, and I'll start my comments today, that we are in the midst of significant changes in higher education. We're seeing changes in state, certainly in our country, globally in terms of all the financial and upheaval that's going on in the Middle East in terms of governance. But clearly there's significant change going on in higher education, and I think the key is going to be over the next 3 to 5 year period, how we respond to that change. I hope today my message is one that's very clear, that we're not in a position in higher education where we're reacting to change, but instead we're defining what we need to do as a system and have a very defined game plan on what we want to do to leverage our assets in higher education as best as they can be leveraged. Certainly with all of the discussion about online education, I think most of you know the state regents have established a task force. Dr. Sonobi is our lead staff person, where we are in the process of developing a system-wide online education program and plan. With all the discussions that has been going on the last couple of years on massive open online courses, new concepts like flipped classrooms, a lot of my colleagues in other states are asking the question, what do we do? How do we respond? How do we react? In Oklahoma, we have brought together a group of presidents of regents, our faculty and our staff to develop a plan that will work for our students in Oklahoma. Clearly, online education is going to be part of our future. At the same time, we need to make sure that those courses, whether they're taught in a traditional fashion or whether they're delivered in an online format, that they have the necessary academic rigor and all of the other requirements that our courses meet. The delivery method is changing greatly. The professor standing up in front of the classroom certainly in a few years will not be the norm, but the professor is still the most important component in making sure that we deliver a quality product to our students. We're also making significant strides and have reconstituted our campus safety and security task force. It was originally formed in the aftermath of Virginia Tech back in 2007. President Cunningham serves on that task force and did on the first one, basically trying to develop a plan for Oklahoma in terms of making sure that we recognize that one of our top responsibilities is to provide a safe campus for our students, and whether it be making sure we have the best emergency notification procedures, ensuring that our local law enforcement communicate to the greatest extent that they can with area law enforcement when an emergency occurs, navigating all the legal issues between a student's right to privacy and the ability to let students know when there is an emergency on campus. All of those things are being discussed in our task force, and we're already, again, making very significant strides. As we look forward, I think partnerships will be a key word. Our colleges and universities are forming significant partnerships with business and with each other as we define what higher education will be going into the next decade. One thing is clear, though, as we listen to our governor, as we look at all the data, all the information points to the fact that the states that are going to be most successful in this new economy are the states that make a priority of providing the necessary resources to not only higher education but also to Common Ed and Career Tech. Essentially, our priorities this year, they are three. The first will be not only our top priority this year, but for the next 11 years, and that's our degree completion initiative, Complete College America. I'll talk more about that in greater detail. Our second initiative, and we were talking about it before we started here today, the ever-recurring concern about weapons on our college campuses. And third, our highly successful scholarship program, the Oklahoma's Promise Scholarship. We certainly are working closely with Governor Fallin on what we believe to be our agenda on each of these items. Guns on campus, the bottom line, essentially there is no, and again, I think it's important to get to the bottom line, the last 5 sessions there's been bills either pre-filed or discussed in either the House or Senate, but I think it's important to note that a bill has never made it through the process in either the House or Senate because of the fact that our legislators have stood up and we have been very diligent on this issue. Again, this year we're again hearing that there may be a bill introduced that would authorize weapons on our campuses. Our position in higher education continues to remain very clear. We don't see really any scenario where guns on our campuses will do anything other than promote a much more dangerous environment for our faculty, our staff, our students, and our visitors on our campus. And we will, again, for the 6th year in a row, aggressively oppose any efforts that allow for the carrying of weapons on our campuses. This will continue to be one of our top priorities, and we want to thank our Senate members and House members for standing up on this issue as well. For those that define it as a Second Amendment rights issue, it's really, I think we would define it for what it is, and that is a campus safety and security issue. When parents and grandparents entrust us with their kids and grandkids, we do have a responsibility to do all that we can to make sure that our campuses are secure. The next item is our Oklahoma's Promise Scholarship. Currently, as you can see from the slide, providing opportunities for over 19,000 students, most of whom are in the category of having the ability to achieve in college but not having the resources to go to college. And this scholarship, if you meet the income level, if you make your grades, if you take the core curriculum, if you're not a disciplinary problem, the state of Oklahoma will provide tuition to a college of your choice in the state of Oklahoma. If you look at some of the data, it's very persuasive. Comparing the students with this scholarship to the general student population, the Oklahoma's Promise Scholarship students have a higher high school grade point average. They make a higher score on the ACT. They have a higher freshman grade point average than the general student population. Their persistence rate from the freshman year to the sophomore year in college is higher. They graduate at a higher level. And ultimately, they have jobs 1 year out of college. A higher percentage of Oklahoma's Promise graduates have jobs in this state in comparison to the general student population. It works very well, and our request is to keep the program intact. There's been legislation in the last session or two that tinkers with it and basically restricts the access to the scholarship. Our feeling is that as long as we're below the national average in terms of the percentage of our citizens with college degrees, anything that works to promote more college degree holders like Oklahoma's Promise, we need to keep the program intact. And speaking of education and training for jobs, Governor Fallon, and we should all be very honored, she is first Oklahoma governor to be selected as the chair of the National Governors Association. Her initiative is Education and Training for Tomorrow's Jobs, and she's asked me to be a member of her executive team. This initiative of the governors aligns completely with our Complete College America degree completion initiative. You might mark your calendars for March 26th. The governor will be hosting a session in Oklahoma that day, bringing in governors from the other 49 states to talk about what we're doing in Oklahoma. She specifically asked me after the STEM Summit in August, where higher education was very visible and organized that event, if we would play a lead role in this effort. So put that on your calendar, and we can think of nothing more important than to have a great turnout from higher education at the governor's event that day. Which again gets us to our major initiative and why we're here today, and that's to talk about college degree completion and Complete College America. The governor has told us if we're going to be competitive, we have to have the best educated and the most productive workforce that we can assemble. We view that in this way: whether a student's right out of high school going to college, or whether they're an adult student who may have stopped out for whatever reason and then is going back to college, we need to give them the means or the access. If they, through our ACT, through our admissions procedures, if they have demonstrated they can achieve in college, then we have a responsibility to give them the access or the opportunity to go to college. We also need to challenge our students to perform at higher levels and to work harder and to work longer. We know one thing for sure: the data tells us that in this new economy, in this new knowledge-based economy, over 90% of those jobs are going to be jobs that require higher education. And so, again, getting to the bottom line in terms of where we stand, with all the work that we've done, Oklahoma is still below the national average in terms of the percentage of our citizens with college degrees. You look at the slide here. Nationally, about 29% of adults 25 years and older have college degrees. In Oklahoma right now today, that percentage is 23.8%. So, it tells us a couple things. We got work to do, but the good news is we have a game plan in place that is working, called Complete College America, that we believe will close this gap for Oklahoma and ultimately get us not only to the national average, but hopefully to even exceed that national average. I'm asked the question, why is all of this even that important? Well, again, let's look at the numbers and let's look at the objective data. We see that there is a very strong relationship or correlation between college degree attainment in a state and the state's per capita income. In fact, if you look at this slide, the overwhelming majority of states that have a higher percentage of their citizens with college degrees to a state are the states that have the higher per capita incomes. And you flip it around, the overwhelming majority of states that have a low percentage of their citizens with college degrees to a state are the states with the lower per capita income. So there is an almost complete relationship between college degree attainment, the strength of a state's economy, and the state's per capita income. The U.S. Census Bureau gave us some very recent information that underscores this. Basically, it shows that a college degree really is the key to economic opportunity for an individual. On an average, if you compare bachelor's degree holders to high school graduates, the data shows from the Census Bureau that the bachelor college degree holder will earn on an average in a year over $21,000 a year more. We like to say if you learn more, you will earn more. You take that to an entire career lifetime, and the data is still very persuasive. The Census Bureau tells us that if you, again, just compare a college degree holder to a high school diploma holder, the individual with a college degree will earn on an average over $1.1 million more during their career lifetime. We would argue that's not even the most important reason to earn a college degree, but it's certainly, for those that say there's no economic advantage, the numbers tell a different story. Also, the Department of Labor statistics shows that in addition to earning more money if you have a college degree, you also will be much less likely to experience unemployment in a downturn. Bringing all those numbers home to Oklahoma, our most recent data from our state's Employment Security Commission in Oklahoma tells us, and this is really important, 1 year out of college for Oklahoma college graduates, 87% of our graduates remain in the state, but more importantly, have jobs in the state of Oklahoma. And I think if you think back, and in fact, there was an article in the paper this morning in the Oklahoman in the business section where I had an opportunity to talk about this. If you go back a couple of decades, there was a very real concern that our graduates were having to leave the state to get jobs, going back to the mid-'80s and shortly thereafter. You think about that now, nearly 9 out of 10 graduates in this state stay in the state and, more importantly, have jobs in the state of Oklahoma. There's several reasons this is occurring, but we think one of the major reasons our colleges and universities have made over this last 7 or 8 year period a much more directed effort, a much more concerted effort to link our academic programs much more closely to what business is telling us their needs are. We've listed several areas here where that is probably most pronounced, certainly in the healthcare arena, in nursing and engineering and business, aviation and aerospace, new programs like wind turbine technology, but also with health information management information systems. It only makes sense if we're talking to business and linking our programs to what they're saying their needs are. Students are going to have greater chances for internship opportunities while they're in college, and ultimately they'll have opportunities for jobs when they graduate. So as we go forward, I think it's important also as we begin our process with our legislature, which kicks off in earnest here in about 3 weeks, to talk about what we've done essentially to help ourselves, to tighten our own belt before we ask for additional resources. Basically, we've got a great story to tell here, and we plan to tell it because it really shows what our system has done to tighten our belt. Over the last 5 years, we have saved over $451 million as a state system, all 25 of our colleges and universities, through a variety of methods. You can see the savings have occurred. A lot of those are in personnel, a good number, and the bulk of them are in energy savings. We've done everything from every campus is engaged in energy retrofit projects. We've had both OU and OSU go into wind power. OSU, an initiative for compressed natural gas. A number of our campuses have been certified as environmentally friendly green campuses. Many have employed early retirement options. They've gone in the summer to 4-day work weeks, 10-hour days to save money. All of these together, buying off the same contracts to save money, have resulted in a savings of over $451 million. And again, that's not just a number we're coming up with. We have a documented book that we present to our budget committee to show how those savings have occurred. Again, this year, we're on track for savings this year in excess of $43 million. Going to the next slide then, in terms of savings in information technology, I think we felt this deserved some discussion as well, because you may remember we asked the legislature, Senator Marlette, Senator Anderson, 3 years ago, when there was an effort to put all of IT under one umbrella, because of the fact that we get discounts because higher ed is an educational entity. We have short turnaround time on grants. Our students pay part of the fees. We asked that we not be, if the goal was to save money, we felt we could save more money for the state by being outside of the umbrella of IT consolidation and thus save money. And I think we, 4 years into this now, have got a good story to tell. Our cost savings on information technology as a system is now $239 million. This year on track to save $48 million in this specific area. So we're certainly understand that our responsibility is to maximize savings. We've got a CIO, a higher ed CIO that meets with the IT officers from every campus in the system to leverage our buying power, if you will, to encourage buying off the same contract, to make sure that we're using all of the best practices in order to continue to save money. And our pledge going forward is we're going to try and maximize this savings in IT every year going forward. Another way where we try to generate money separate from the state budget is in research and grantsmanship. The numbers came in at the end of this last fall, and we've generated over $620 million in competitive grants for program development and research. This provides great learning opportunities for our students in research, and it also, again, generates money for those academic programs throughout our state system. Again, looking at the budget over the last 5 years, and we know that the downturn started in 2008, you can see there's been a significant reduction in funding for the state system during this time period. I mentioned earlier, last year was an increase, which is noted, but before that, a relatively significant decline in funding over the last 5 years. At the same time, our enrollment has increased. Looking at it from another standpoint, looking at it from a 33-year snapshot in terms of the percentage of the state budget that goes for higher education, and this is really important. Back in 1980, 18.6% of the state budget went for higher ed funding. This last year, in fiscal year 14, that percentage had dropped to 14.6%. So essentially, over 33 years, a 4% drop. Then looking at it from another vantage point, just in terms of the higher ed dollar and the percentage of that dollar that comes directly from state appropriation, you can see from this slide that going back 25 years ago to 1988, essentially 75% of the higher ed dollar came from state appropriation. Over the last 25 years, that percentage has dropped from 75% down to 38.7%. You might ask why the significant drop. There's been several reasons. Our legislators know it very well. A significant increase in health care costs, a significant increase for the Department of Human Services and Transportation. And it stands to reason as those categories increase, higher education, the other components of the education family, their percentage of the budget has decreased. We would submit, though, that higher ed situation is even a little different because at the time that the decreases occurred over the last 5 years, we've also experienced a historic increase in enrollment on all of our campuses. You can see there over 11,000 students during this time period, and new students. So as the budgets have gone down, the number of students on campus have increased, and obviously when you have more students on campus, your fixed costs increase. Now, I don't think this should be looked at entirely in negative terms, because the fact that we've had this significant enrollment increase does underscore the fact that parents and students understand they need a college degree if they're going to be competitive. The timing just was not what we'd hoped for with the downturn, which obviously no one could anticipate happening at the same time of this historic increase in our enrollment. Well, that raises the next question. With the money down, with enrollment up, what has Oklahoma done in the area of tuition? And we've really got a great story to tell here if you look at what we've done in comparison to nearly every other state. Let's go back all the way to 2009. We were one of only 2 states in the country that froze tuition, had no increase in tuition and fees that year. Then between 2010 and 2012, we averaged about a 5% increase in tuition. And then finally this last year, in June of this year, the state average was 4.7%. So essentially over that 5-year period, Oklahoma's tuition increase was right at 4.1%. Keep that figure in mind as we look at what's happened across the country during this same time period. Arizona, 78%, Georgia, 63%, California, 72% increase in tuition, and California, you may recall, had back-to-back years of 33% increase and then 32% on the heels of that. So nationally, tuition is in the high double digits, and I think it's a very important comparison point where you see that this is the way other states have responded to the downturn. The state of Oklahoma has kept, through our process, with our regents being involved, our campuses being involved, and ultimately the state regents setting tuition based on the parameters that the legislature provides. We have kept it under 5%, and I think that's really a great story. And you don't even really need to take our word for it. Under the most recent report from the U.S. Chamber, they ranked our state system of higher education the 8th most efficient in the country. The criteria for efficiency is transparency, cost savings, accountability measures, and we ranked certainly in the top 10. But in affordability, and this isn't just tuition and fees, this involves housing and books and all the other related costs of going to college. We are the 7th most affordable state in the United States, and then 19th in the very important area of job growth and STEM. Correctly and understandably, student debt continues to be a major issue, and this is another one where we need to define Oklahoma's story in comparison to the national story. You read a lot about exorbitant student debt, and normally it's usually, if you read the fine print, either on the East Coast or at private colleges and universities. The most recent data shows that in terms of student debt, Oklahoma is 20% below the national average in terms of debt that students accrue leaving college, with the current number being $23,000. Which again brings us to, with all of this on the table, how do we respond? And we respond with the Degree Completion Initiative. The reason it's important, if you look at this next slide and look at the states that the countries that are referenced there, over the last 2 decades, unfortunately, the United States has slipped from being first in the world in college degree completion all the way to 16th. And we don't believe that's where we want to stay, and as a result, Complete College America has been the initiative that Oklahoma and 33 other states have joined to turn it around. Our game plan in Oklahoma, which is a 5-point plan, need to mention when Governor Fallin kicked off this initiative in September of 2011, a little over 2 years ago now, Complete College America was there, and they told us that our 5-point plan was the model plan for all the participating states. And so I'll just run through it and click through it quickly. The first point of the plan, because it really just makes sense, focuses on getting students ready for college. We do a lot there with our E-Pass testing program where we test students. We fund it. The state regents fund it, but they're testing the 8th and 10th grade, Explore, the 8th grade, Plan in the 10th grade, where they still have time to fine-tune if they need help in reading or science and math to get ready to take the ACT and to get ready for college admission. Pathways to college degrees and certificates, very, very important. We're working with Career Tech to count those certificates that are countable as we speak. Remediation, you hear so much about it. Our position is that we don't need to really engage in the blame game with K through 12, but instead get students in to the classroom, get them the remedial courses they need, and then get them on to earning courses for college credit and their degree. Adult degree completion, which is going to be critically important because the population in Oklahoma of students going directly from high school to college is starting to level off. So these adult students are the ones that we've got to cast the net towards if we're going to be successful in degree completion. If you think for a minute, we've got over 70,000 students out there right now today that have earned over 72 hours towards their degree, but they don't have a degree. So our responsibility, and we've got initiatives on every campus in our system, is to get those students into these customized courses. It's a combination of face-to-face and online instruction where they can get their degree and be more productive for themselves and certainly for the state as well. And then finally, the last initiative is performance funding. We stuck our necks out in 2012. We're now one of the first 5 states to base our funding on institutions increasing their retention rates, keeping students in college, and ultimately their graduation rates. So we're ahead of the game there, and we believe this will align completely with our degree completion initiatives. Well, we laid it out there. In year 1, we assigned numbers to each campus in terms of increasing our college degree completion efforts. Our goal was 1,700 additional degrees in year 1. And I think, as many of you know, we did not meet that goal. We greatly exceeded that goal. The number in year 1 was 2,945. So it's important to celebrate success. We could have been quiet about it. We weren't. We said what we were going to do. We assigned numbers to campuses, and in year one have been very successful. Now, again, it's a 12-year plan. Our goal, and I hope everybody agrees, is to be there in year 12. And admittedly, the first year may be the easiest year. We hope not, but we need to be ahead of the game every year. So it brings us to our budget. And in general terms, every dollar that's requested in the budget goes directly to college degree completion. Our request overall is a 7% increase, a $76 million increase for the 25 colleges and universities. Some might say, there's an article in the paper today, some of the articles say the money's going to be very tight. In fact, there's going to be a shortfall. The treasurer this morning had a slightly more positive take on it. Really, from where we stand, our job is to present the needs of the system to our legislators and our governor, irrespective of what the budget climate may be. And I don't mean to say we are realists, and obviously in a year when there's a reduction, you take that into account. But our responsibility is to lay out those needs and then work with our House and Senate members, which we believe and hope we have and will continue to maximize whatever the appropriation will be, but being cognizant of the economic environment that we're in. Our increase in terms of this particular request, our operational needs of our 25 colleges and universities always are first and foremost. If you've got more students, your fixed costs go up, and that equates to $30,100,000 request. The rest of the performance and degree completion needs really goes to the nuts and bolts of the business that we're in, adding additional course sections throughout our state system, 436 to be exact, 339 online courses, additional scholarships, and additional faculty in those areas where additional faculty is merited because of the increased enrollment. I had mentioned earlier, online education is going to be a significant issue going forward. The request here will be to fund technology needs to ensure the seamless integration of our online courses into our enrollment management practices and our course equivalency evaluations. Also, funding for online to put together a dashboard that we're working on to provide presidents and us with more realistic real-time information where we can assess our performance outcomes and our degree completion goals. Our next request deals with deferred maintenance. This isn't very glitzy at all. It's the roofs, the sidewalks that need to be repaired. We're in a state-of-the-art great building here today, President Cunningham, but I think as all of you know, as many of our campuses celebrated their centennial, their 100th birthday, the buildings are celebrating their 100th birthday as well. And in many instances, there's significant ADA compliance requirements that need to be addressed, and that goes to that request. The next request in terms of degree completion really goes to the heart of what we're trying to do in terms of being invasive to do all we can to drive degree completion. And we're doing that through ramping up our academic advisement and our job placement efforts, career counseling, financial information. I think the last thing we want are students to get to college and rack up so much debt that they have to drop out to pay their credit cards. Veterans who are returning from Afghanistan and Iraq, who have, I think we all know, very different needs than students that are coming right out of high school. And to address those needs, to give veterans a chance to acclimate back into our collegiate environment where they can get on the business of earning their degree and getting on with their life after they have represented our nation so well and so valiantly. Concurrent enrollments, our next initiative, a great success story. Where students, their junior and senior year in high school, take courses for college credit. It shortens their time to degree. It also gets them into the mindset that they can compete and succeed in college. This last year, over 102,000 student credit hours were earned. Our request is to fully fund concurrent enrollment for the fall, spring, and summer semester because it works so well and it drives college degree completion so completely. Right now, only 47% of the cost is being absorbed by the state, and so basically the institutions just have to chin the rest, and because it works so well, we would ask that be fully funded. Our two need-based scholarships, our tuition aid grant and our tuition equalization grant, asking that both of those be brought up to right now the OTAG program. And Bert, I know you remember that from your days on the Regents, is being funded at the 42% level. We'd like to get it up a little higher than that. I mentioned adult degree completion, students going back to get their degree. The governor expressed interest in a match program where we would essentially have a match of $250,000, and as local foundations and local donors would contribute to scholarships for adults going back to college. We did this in Broken Arrow a few months ago. Then we would administer this match program at the state regents level, all with the design of getting more adult students to come back to college to get their degree. As we talk to them, they say the largest impediment, even though with all the help that they're getting, they still need additional scholarship assistance. And then the final request deals with STEM. This has been a major priority of Governor Fallon. Right now, these summer academies in science and math get students interested in science and math at a much earlier stage in the high school process. We have double the requests each year that we can fund, and so the request would be to fund an additional 10 summer academies for science and math throughout the state in order to further the efforts on the STEM initiative. We had some very good news in April of this year. The State Chamber of Commerce, the Governor's Business Roundtable, and our State Department of Commerce came together and put together a report to document the economic impact of higher education on the state's economy. A lot of information. We'll just summarize three very quickly here. It confirmed what we felt we knew, and that is higher education is a major engine in driving the economy in this state. Specifically, higher education this last year had over a $9.2 billion impact on our state's economy, directly creating more than 85,000 jobs in the state. Probably the most important takeaway: for every dollar that the legislature and the governor invest in higher education, $4.72 is returned directly to the state's economy. And they put this together in a way that all of our campuses that are here today have the economic breakdown of what their return on investment is within their regions of the state as well. Bottom line, this reaffirms that there really are not any investments that our state policy leaders can make that has a greater return on investment than the investment in higher education. Governor Fallon put together with the Department of Commerce a survey of 5,400 of the top business leaders in this state, assessing the state's strengths, weaknesses, and obstacles in terms of the ability to do business. We were very gratified that when the results came back, the top business strength in the state, listed by business leaders, was the strength of our 2-year and our 4-year college and university system in the state. And if you look further and drill down a little further, not just by a small margin, 87% of those surveys indicated the quality of our higher education system in Oklahoma was either excellent or very good. And so I would just close. I'm anxious to hear comments from our legislators with just a couple of thoughts. One, I think it's important that we tell our story. We've got a great story on tuition. We've got a great story on student debt. We have a very significant story on how we've tightened our belt in higher education. We're clearly on this degree completion effort in the top 3 or 4 states in the country. Hawaii's there, Tennessee is there, Texas is there, and Oklahoma's there. My concern, quite frankly, is that most of these other states are putting resources into the degree completion effort. To this point, we've done what we've been able to do in Oklahoma, either on reduced budgets or on flat budgets, and again, last year represented our first increase in 5 years. I think it's going to be up to us to carry the water on this. Certainly, if we are not able to make the case, we're looking at this year, and even if the treasurer's right, and there may be a little more money than was earlier predicted, it's still going to be a very tight budget year. So it's really going to be on our backs to make the case about higher education really not just being an expense like a lot of the categories in the budget, but indeed it is an investment. I think most in this room believe that we're on the right track. We have as we work in higher ed, as we're involved in higher education, we can see how on a daily basis our students get those tools to critically think and problem solve and analyze. As we were talking earlier today, it's important that we meet those workforce needs, but really the significance of a college degree on top of being able to have the skill you need is to have those communication skills, those skills where you can problem solve and analyze. But it's really going to be up to us to tell that story. We can tell it in February at Higher Ed Day. Our students, of course, who are here today are great ambassadors, but I think we all believe we're on the right course, and if we're able to make that case, our legislators have been great partners, and we always want to work with them in partnership. But I think all of us believe that if we make that case persuasively, we have a chance to define through higher education what the future direction of Oklahoma will be in a more comprehensive way than anything else that can happen in our state. So for that, I think it deserves our time and attention and our support. We always are excited about this time of the session because we kick off this 4-month effort where the state, through our Senate and House members and governor, establishes the state's priorities. Our message today is we want to be partners with you in that effort. We hope we've been good partners in the past, but we believe our message on behalf of the students of our state is a very compelling one. And finally, we just hope that we're sending the signal that we believe it's a great message and we're ready to get to work. So thank you for being here today. Look, be glad to answer questions, but most of all, just appreciate everyone turning out. Thank you so much.